Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Very Cold Lasagna podcast, your place for all those filthy casual takes on the world of sports. I'm your host, DylanLasagna. This is episode number 180 of this icy yet spicy sports podcast. And in this episode, we're here to talk about the first of two NFL Conference Championship games, 2023 edition, and man, was it a kind of wacky, kind of wild Championship Sunday this past Sunday. And overall, wacky conference championship weekend overall, that kind of feeling. So anyway, we're here to talk about first in this episode, the AFC Championship game that happened in the afternoon on Sunday between the 3-seeded Kansas City Chiefs and the top-seeded Baltimore Ravens. And then in the next episode, we're going to talk about the NFC Championship game that happened between the Detroit Lions and my San Francisco 49ers. So why do I split these episodes apart? Well, I want you guys to get my thoughts on these games in a dedicated manner. So that's why I separate them in between, to space things out, to let you guys breathe, and get you my full in-depth thoughts on how I felt about each and every game in its own dedicated platform. So anyway, before we get the ball rolling with my AFC Championship recap, my review of that game, a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. Make sure you follow the show on social media, on the X and Instagram at Very Cold Lasagna. If you're listening to this on audio, all my audio listeners out there, make sure you rate, review the show 1 to 5 stars, however you want to rate it. Make sure you also leave that little review. Give me some feedback, whether you like the show or some things I can fix upon. Anything for all my audio only listeners out there. And if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you smash the like button. Smash the subscribe button, leave a comment, share this with your friends, share this with your strangers, share this with the neighbor, share this with whomever you want to share this with. Share that icy, yet spicy, very cold lasagna. Of course, not the actual physical thing because that's gross. But anyway, share this podcast called Very Cold Lasagna and spread the word about your own filthy casual takes on the world of sports and all the topics that I talk about on this podcast thingy. So anyway, let's talk about the first of two championship games that happened this past Sunday in the world of the NFL, and that involved the Kansas City Chiefs and the Baltimore Ravens in the city of Baltimore. In case you missed my preview of this game, this is just the second playoff meeting between these two teams. The first one happening in the 2010 AFC wildcard game. The Ravens won that one 30-7 in Kansas City. Pretty much a blowout game, and much different team back then. Both sides of the ball, both teams. Different quarterbacks for the Ravens and the Chiefs. So no Mahomes, no Lamar. So pretty different feel for those teams. So obviously, 13 years later, you're gonna get a different sentiment. So for the Chiefs, they're making their 6th straight AFC Championship appearance. The first for Patrick Mahomes and them playing on the road. And that marked the first time since 2017 that the AFC title game wasn't going to be in Kansas City. It was going to be somewhere else. That somewhere else being M&T Bank Stadium in Baltimore, Maryland, for the first time ever in Ravens history that they were going to host an AFC Championship game. Now, granted, the city of Baltimore has already hosted an AFC title game well back in their inaugural season. I believe it was the very first AFC Championship game, the inaugural AFC Championship game. I take that back. In the 1970 season, that was when the Indianapolis Colts were back then known as the Baltimore Colts before they relocated. They beat the Oakland Raiders in Memorial Stadium before it got demolished. Much later. But that's besides the point. They beat the Oakland Raiders in Memorial Stadium, and then they went on to beat the Dallas Cowboys in Super Bowl V. So that was like their only home AFC Championship game in the city of Baltimore. And here they were over however many years later and housing another AFC Championship game. So these two teams, it's been a little while since they met each other in any capacity. A little over 2 years The last time we saw them meet together, the last time they met each other was back in week 2 of the 2021 NFL regular season. The Ravens and Lamar Jackson beat the Chiefs at home in a nail biter. But of course, 2 years can change for both of these teams. They're slightly different since we last saw them. I mean, not too much has changed. But yeah, like I said, when you know your team well, at least for both of these sides, looking within, you know them well. So that being said, let's talk about this game. Big matchup, Patrick Mahomes versus Lamar Jackson. And they faced off each other 4 times, including that game that I mentioned. The Chiefs have had the upper hand 3-1 between those 4 meetings. And now this was the one that really mattered the most. They faced each other in the regular season, blah, blah, blah. But this is the one that truly mattered. A trip to the Super Bowl in Las Vegas on the line, and a chance for Lamar Jackson to truly prove himself, because he exactly in his last couple of playoff outings, not exactly a fruitful one, other than the last game against the Houston Texans. But now he's going up against a real team in the Kansas City Chiefs on the biggest stage so far for him and the Baltimore Ravens. So unfortunately for Baltimore, in the first quarter, in the opening possession, things did not start off well. They had to punt very early, and then defensively, it also didn't start off well. The Chiefs were driving, and then they did manage to stop them on third down, a little bit past midfield. But Patrick Mahomes was telling Andy Reid, hey, let's go for it. Let's take an early gutsy shot at fourth down. And then rather than try to hard count them, because that stadium was loud as hell, they were raising the decibels, pal. They decided to actually go for it. And after a short middle floor from Mahomes to Kelsey, breaking all the records with that Brady and Gronkowski connection, they actually converted the first down. Like, damn, can't stop them. And then 2 plays later, Kyle Hamilton, the safety, gets beat by Kelsey in the end zone, catching another Mahomes floater. And lo and behold, they go perfect for passing, and they get a 7-0 lead out of it on the opening possession. Meanwhile, it seemed like, on Baltimore's follow-up possession, it seemed like another 3-and-out for them. They were a little behind their own logo, but they decided to go for it as well. You know what? We're down 7-0. It's a little getting close to the end of the first quarter, and it's like, you know what? Fuck it. We're just gonna go for it on 4th and 1. Like, we're like deep in our own territory, and we're just gonna go for it on 4th and 1. We're not gonna. And then in hard count, they decided to, let's do it. Lamar Jackson burst through an open hole that I thought it could have been a long touchdown run had he not stumbled, but he could have went to the distance. He could have gotten that touchdown run, but alas, he gets tackled, and then a couple plays later, he converts that big first down, and then they get a big resetting touchdown 2 plays later to Zay Flowers. He floats one up in the air, and the game is tied 7-all. So that was kind of missing in that opening possession. So it resets 7-all going to the second quarter. So the Ravens, they're still trying to have to figure out how to get Mahomes into some pressure, trying to figure out how to force some drop passes and all that. And even if they did early to start the second quarter, still trying to figure out how to stop the chunk plays, whether in the air or on the ground, because this Chiefs team was driving. They were driving and thriving, going the distance as they made their way back to the end zone just moments later. And Isaiah Pacheco cashed in for a 14-7 lead. And it was a pretty long drive. It was a pretty long drive for Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. It was a 9-minute drive that extended from the final minutes of the first quarter. And yeah, essentially they extended to a little bit over 3 or 4 minutes into the second quarter. So it's it was a pretty long drive for Mahomes and the Chiefs. So it could have been ended a little bit earlier. It could have ended with no points on the board, or maybe even 3. But the Ravens couldn't find a way to keep Mahomes in the pocket. Mahomes is just too elusive with his pocket awareness. So they also couldn't figure out how to like stop the chunk plays with Mahomes preferring the short throws, the short check down throws. So that was something to consider. So things got worse for the Ravens because they had to like respond. They had to respond to what the Chiefs dealt to them, because they made their first mistake of the game. And don't worry, there was plenty of them coming from them. So the first mistake from the Ravens came from Lamar Jackson himself, because here's the thing from Lamar. Like, he has the tendency to hold onto the ball for a little too long, and he does this thing where he holds it like this, like extends it out, and then that left him prone to get strip sacked by edge rusher Charles Omenihu, who was having a really good game on defense. And then Charles Omenihu strip sacks him, and then they recover it, and Kansas City was set up well inside the Ravens 40, and they were in prime position with how well they were playing to go out and get another score, make it 21-7 or maybe 17-7, but who knows? Who knows how would it went? But the Ravens defense was very fortunate that they were able to prevent any points from going on the board, because the Chiefs made an interesting decision to go for it on 4th and very short in the red zone, but rather than take some points. Very interesting call there. But even then, the Lamar Jackson, the Ravens still had to make a push, to get some points. But their offense just was very struggling. They were stuck in neutral. They were forced to punt, even with the improv play that saw Lamar Jackson throw the ball, had it get deflected, and then he had to rush to it and catch his own pass, get a good 15 to 20 yard gain out of it. And yeah, they were still forced to punt out of it. So much for Jim Nantz and Tony Romo, stroking their, to that great play by Lamar. So anyway, you see both teams trading the punts as time winded down to the 2-minute warning. But this is where the Ravens really start to implode here. This is Baltimore. They're not getting anything going, and now it's starting to affect the defense. For as very solid as they've been playing, this is where they really started to inflict their wounds, because they had some very bad penalties from Kyle Van Noy and Travis Jones for I think it was personal foul on Kyle Van Noy for bumping his helmet into I think it was Kelsey or another one of the linemen. And then you had Travis Jones do his best JBL impersonation with the clothesline from hell on Patrick Mahomes. It's guys, you're killing yourselves. You're down 14-7, and you can't get anything going. Not necessary. But at least ref ball came into fair game against the Chiefs, because they get 2 holding calls from their offensive linemen, and they were forced to take just a field goal. I mean, could have been a bigger deficit for the Baltimore Ravens, but they were lucky enough to hold them to just 17-7. A not completely impossible lead to deficit to overcome, but considering where they were at the first half, it's not all was lost. Not all this lost, but the problem was their offense was really stuck in neutral in that first half. I mean, the Chiefs certainly had a game plan for him. Keep Lamar in the pocket at all times, and then cover up his weapons. Really cover up his weapons, which they really did a good job of. So, I mean, it is interesting enough. We thought we were going to get that offensive explosion after they traded touchdowns with each other in the first quarter. But again, Lamar Jackson really never clicked after that. Again, struggling out there, missing open looks to his receivers, and surprisingly, he had Mark Andrews coming back from this game, and they never really got him going in that first half. And then plus on the other side, Lamar Jackson was, again, going back to my original point, holding on to the ball for too long. Meanwhile, for the Chiefs, it looked like they were going to run away with the game at times with how well they were doing, how fast they were gaining scoring position, and using chuck plays to confuse the Ravens defense, but they just couldn't capitalize. They just couldn't capitalize in the red zone. They had some difficulties scoring in the red zone and getting just field goals out of it and making that interesting decision to go for it on fourth down on the other side of the field. So again, not all was lost for Baltimore if they wanted to get back in this game, but they need Lamar Jackson to really step up. Stop playing home run derby, trying to go for that home run shot because he was going for too many of them. Be simple to him. Go for the check down, but we'll see if he did that. We'll find out in a couple minutes because the Ravens defense, they started the second half much better. They managed to get a Chiefs punt on their opening drive in pretty short order, but I guess Lamar Jackson didn't get the memo. Halftime. Get those butterflies out of your tummy, pal. Because he was also sent off the field quickly by the Chiefs defense. But fortunately for the Baltimore defense, sending the Chiefs out in quick order, getting them the punt again. So Baltimore, at least their defense, was starting to heat up on both sides of the ball. And now their offense had its best drive after that. So Lamar Jackson finally moving the field, getting Zay Flowers involved, getting Rashad Bateman involved. But despite a good 5 minutes of advancing downfield, Lamar Jackson, he gets sacked at a field goal range on a blitz by Ed Reed that he doesn't recognize. And then, well, they got a bunt. So another missed opportunity for the Ravens to get some points on the board. At least get Justin Tucker to get some points. So it's like they really could not get anything going. Like, despite, having these really good drives, but just too many mental errors. But again, the Ravens defense, trying to keep their team alive with another quick 3-and-out from Kansas City. And, well, would anything get the Baltimore offense going at this point? So, I don't know. Maybe their old friend, Terrell Suggs, from Super Bowl 47, the Super Bowl 47 champion, Terrell Suggs, during the commercial break, he came out, tried to get the crowd going, tried to get his offense going. It's like, hey, we need you, man. We need you. So that jolt finally came from Lamar Jackson, finally getting his first big play in a long while to Zay Flowers to put themselves in the red zone. But unfortunately, they got pushed back out of the red zone because Zay Flowers was taunting after the catch because stupid, dumbass. I don't know why he was. He in the moment. But anyway. And then they got back in the red zone. They were back in scoring position. But unfortunately, one play later, their best scoring opportunity was completely taken away because as Zay Flowers was trying to, he was diving for the end zone. And then this was a kind of heads-up play, by the way. Credit to L'Jarius Sneed, who made this play, the corner for the Chiefs. L'Jarius Sneed, he made this heads-up play before Zay Flowers had the ball cross the goal line. He swiped it away. He knocked the ball out of Zay Flowers' hand, but right at the very last moment, knocked it away from the goal line, and the Chiefs recovered it from the end zone. Like, damn, that's a major killer. Like, that's a big mistake from Zay Flowers, but also a heads-up play from L'Jarius Sneed. But it's like, damn, if you're Zay Flowers, it's like, you got to tuck that. You had to tuck that. I get it. I get the intention, but kind of far. It was a little far from the goal line. So major killer for the Baltimore Ravens. And, despite some ref fault bullcrap going against them, the defense, again, gave them some life. They stopped Mahomes in the Chiefs midfield. So they still had some life in them. Still some life against Mahomes and the Chiefs. But it has been all game. This has been a recurring theme. Lamar still having trouble getting it going. Solving the code of the Kansas City Chiefs defense. Taking a bad sack. Running out of the pocket on third down. Like, his offensive line was giving him a lot of time to throw that ball. But it's like he can't find anything. It's like he has everybody covered up. It's like, why not just run? Why just not run immediately? Get out of the pocket. So it took like him a good 10 to 15 seconds to just go. If you don't see anything, go right away. It's like, you're a runner. You're a good mobile quarterback. It's like, damn, just take off, dude. So anyway, they did manage to convert a fourth down on that drive, and they advanced the ball down the field. Time was ticking to near the Kansas City 25, with I think it was like over 7 minutes left to go in the game. But Lamar Jackson makes another massive mistake. I understand why. He threw it unpressured, inch or triple coverage, and it was intercepted in the end zone by safety Deion Bush. I think it was intended for Isaiah Likely, but it's like, why even throwing it into 3 Chiefs players when, I get you're trying to fit the ball to him, but it's like, it wasn't there. It wasn't to be. It's not a recreation of last week with Derek Stingley and Isaiah Likely. It wasn't there. Like, it's not there. You got to find somebody else. Like, I'm not sure what he was like eyeing with Isaiah Likely with 3 players around him. So it was intercepted, like another missed scoring opportunity. So this is really bad from the Baltimore Ravens. So again, the defense, at least they forced a 3 and out, but the urgency was at an all-time high. Time was becoming a premium for Baltimore. There's like over 5 minutes left in the game, 7 points to show for it, like multiple scoring opportunities being wasted because of various mistakes, various turnovers. So what also was becoming a premium was the calls, or at least the lack thereof, against Kansas City. I mean, yeah, I get it. Ref ball is a thing because there was a clear pass interference, for example, towards tight end Isaiah Likely against Kansas City, but never was called. But nonetheless, like, you dealt with the cards that are handed to you, and the Ravens took 3 points to make it a 17-10 game. They needed the defense to get one more stop out of it, and they almost did. But unfortunately, this was where the point of the game where, hey, let's make some more stupid mistakes on their defense, because Roquan Smith, he tried to get an intentional 1st and 10. I guess that's what the intention was. He incurred a personal foul penalty by as he was trying to get an intentional offside. Man, that was a real killer. That was a real killer for the Ravens. And the final dagger came in when the Chiefs decided to go for it on 3rd down. It was like 3rd and forever. And they decided, we're not going to run it. We're not going to do anything here. We're not going to let him punt. Mahomes decided to throw up a floater to one of his receivers, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, and he actually caught it. And that pretty much sealed the game. Baltimore had no more timeouts remaining. They used them all up, and that was the game, 17-10. Wow, that was an absolutely brutal way for the Ravens to lose that game. No, not just those final 2 minutes, that final defensive drive, but just looking at the grand scheme of how Baltimore played that game on Sunday, they imploded. They imploded at the biggest stage on their home turf. It's just like, damn. It's like, damn. Just talking about it 2 days later. Like, I get it. I know. I probably didn't point it out. It's late, out of date, but hey, here we are talking about it. Because for a team that was so dominant, quietly, nobody talked about them all that much. And then they start to make a lot more noise late in the season with that statement win over the San Francisco 49ers on Christmas, and then against the Miami Dolphins 6 days later. But then when the lights got really bright, they folded. They folded against the best team in the true best team in the AFC. It's like, damn. It's like, did you get a swift butt kicking before, mentally beforehand? What happened? So that top tier, at least, it wasn't all bad. I mean, the top tier defense kept you alive for a lot of the game, especially in the second half. But it's just the emotions really caught up to them, and it really cost them dearly. It literally cost them one last chance to give their offense another opportunity to try and at least tie up the game, go to an extra period. But it's emotions were just too high. They couldn't contain them. And then Lamar Jackson, meanwhile, the supposed MVP favorite that had been playing so well, in the regular season and then did pretty well for himself in the divisional game against the Texans, he was ineffective. He was neutered in this championship game. For someone that wanted to prove himself, to reverse the narrative of no showing in big games, well, not erasing that narrative in a while because he was ineffective, error prone. He rattled under pressure for much of the afternoon on Sunday with the self-induced fumble, a badly thrown interception into triple coverage, and yeah, his worst flaw being displayed in the bright light, holding the ball for damn too long, and then when he realizes that, oh, I gotta make something happen, it's too late. It's too late to make that happen because when you try to make that happen, you either get a unnecessary sack or you get a turnover or it's an incompletion that results in your team having to punt. So all this really bit him in the ass. And I get it. His supporting cast was also a non-factor outside of Zay Flowers and to a degree, Mark Andrews, I suppose. But damn. He held on to that thing for a good 10 seconds on average, and which had been, again, a season-long issue, and it really bit him. And, the supporting cast could have helped him a little bit more. Maybe the play calling could have, implemented the likes of Odell Beckham Jr. more, Nelson Aguilar more. As the game rolled along, you had to realize that at some point, you got to start implementing other guys in as well. You have all these players like Bateman, Odell Beckham, Nelson Aguilar. For as some of them are limited, you got to find a way to get them involved. Try to get them to step up because Lamar Jackson, you got them all these skill players, and yet they were nowhere to be found. At least most of them were. And then one more thing about the Ravens, it's where was the running game? Where was the running game on Sunday? It worked well against the Texans, and then the Chiefs' running defense is good, but it's not the best in the world. It's actually pretty neutral. So they, even with all the injuries in the running department, it's they still have a solid rushing attack with Gus Edwards and Justice Hill. So it wasn't all that terrible, but it was why did they completely abandon the run in at least half of the game? So that really did them no favors either. So pretty much everything that the Ravens did to be successful all season, nowhere to be found in this game. As a result, they bitch fitted their way to an implosion, and that's why they went home on Sunday. Meanwhile, for the Kansas City Chiefs, they put together a pretty good game plan. They much followed most of my keys to victory. You got Travis Kelce more involved. He's involved early in the game plan. I know the second half, pretty much the Ravens defense locked down on everybody. But that Chiefs defense, though, on the other side, came really strong. They neutralized Lamar Jackson and that Ravens offense, covered up everybody in sight. I think they pretty much didn't let Mark Andrews come into the game anymore after that point. And they basically also neutralized Lamar Jackson himself. They mentioned it a lot in the broadcast. They didn't let him run quite a whole lot. And even they did, they only let him stay behind the lines. They only let him run east or west. They didn't let him run north. So that was a good game strategy that was executed by Kansas City. And then they also kept, like I said, every other weapon outside of Zay Flowers in check for the majority of the game, and while also neutralizing the running game. But I gotta say, man, the referees were piss poor in the game. Not just on the Baltimore side, but Kansas City's trying to make calls again in support of Kansas City as well. They missed a good amount of obvious calls directed against the Chiefs, and then some dumb dick ones against the Ravens. So I mean, yeah, the Ravens didn't help themselves with their own self-destruction, but yeah, I guess towards the end, I know it sounds like contradictory with what I'm saying with all this flip-flopping. I just gotta say in general, the refs once again made it clear who they were sucking off on Sunday. So for the Ravens, their season ends. One of their best season ends in disappointment. Now they got to head into an offseason looking to fix it up for a return back. Hopefully they'll get back because, I mean, they still have Cincinnati as their biggest competitor. You never know about Cleveland because we'll see if Deshaun Watson can try to get back into form. But, hey, they at least prove they can be a somewhat competitive team as long as they can get the quarterback situation right. But for the Ravens, they got to fix some things up in the offseason if they want to get back to this point and make it back to the Super Bowl next year with Lamar Jackson. It's not going to be easy, however, to repeat such success because they can lose either one of their offensive or defensive coordinators to the last two remaining head coaching jobs at the time this episode gets released. So one of those head coaching jobs is either Seattle or Washington. So we'll see. We'll see how those head coaching interviews for either one of those do. Todd Monken or Mike McDonald. They could lose either one of them in the coming days or weeks. And in terms of free agency in the draft, they only have around $5 million in cap space, at least approximately. So they have to restructure some deals, cut some dead weight from the roster in favor of some players that seem more fit and, with more team-friendly deals. And they should, in terms of their top needs, it should be like continuing to shore up the supporting cast around Lamar. They'll probably have to draft another receiver or a running back that could stay healthy and not get cursed by the injury bug. And you also have to consider signing one of your offensive free agents, whether it be Nelson Aguilar, Devin Duvernay, J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards. All of them are free agents. And, although Beckham's not getting any younger, he's still on the team. But again, can you really rely on Beckham at his age? I mean, and he has played for a couple of games this season, so that's something to really consider. So for the Ravens, it's going to be a busy offseason for them, and if they want to get back to this point, they have to retool. They have to retool for next year. Meanwhile, for the Chiefs, despite to the displeasure of many, the Chiefs and Taylor Swift are heading back to the Super Bowl. They're going to be playing in the stadium of their division rival, and I'm pretty sure as hell that Mark Davis is going to be pissed as that, and so are the Raiders. But anyway, the Chiefs are going back to their second straight Super Bowl and their fourth Super Bowl in 5 years, and they're going to make the one last push to truly attempt at repeating as champions for the first time since the 2003 and 2004 New England Patriots. So they're going to try to do what Cody Rhodes did recently and become a back-to-back Super Bowl champion. Who they face on the other side of the coin, on the other side of the fence of the Super Bowl, well, that's another story to tell. You probably know already, but for those that aren't in the know or would like to know, or they already know, but they just want to listen to this angelic and stumbling, rambling voice, well, we'll sit and tell that story in another episode of Very Cold Lasagna. But anyway, that is it for this episode of Very Cold Lasagna, episode number 180 of this icy yet spicy podcast. What did you guys think about this AFC Championship game this past Sunday between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Baltimore Ravens? Were you a fan of either of these teams? If you're on the losing side, which was the Ravens, you can vent your disappointment in the comments on YouTube, or you can send me a message on Instagram or X. If you're on the winning side, let me know how your Chiefs will do in the Super Bowl. Will they win it? Or if you think they'll lose it, I don't know. Either way, let me know your thoughts on the Chiefs in the comments below as well. Anyway, thank you for tuning into this episode, whether it's on YouTube or on audio, of Very Cold Lasagna. I'm your host, DylanLasagna, signing out of another icy yet spicy episode of this podcast. And as always, keep the lasagna very cold in the fridge with your takes on the world of sports. And until the next one, peace out.